We are speaking today with Elder Joe J. Christensen, an Emeritus General Authority of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Elder Christensen served as the 12th president of BYU Idaho, then Ricks College, from 1985 to 1989. Welcome. We're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I'd like to begin today by discussing a few of the things you may have experienced prior to being called as a president. What did you know about the school before being invited to serve?
Well, I had the opportunity, of course, living in Idaho. I came from Idaho, and so I've known people who've gone to Ricks for an eon. But I suppose the most acquaintance I had before coming to Ricks was during those 9 years I served with Elder Maxwell and others in the commissioner's office, in the Board of Trustees meetings, and also Board of Education meetings. Ricks College items would come up. So I had those contacts, and then on occasion being invited up to speak at a devotional or be in some kind of a meeting. So I became a little bit more acquainted with Ricks, enough to know that it was a very good institution.
So what was your initial reaction when you learned that you were going to have the opportunity?
Well, surprise, for one thing. I had not applied. But I knew they were in the process of interviewing people to be considered to be president of Ricks. And a week or so later, I received a word that the brethren would like me to apply. So that's how I came to be interviewed. And then, of course, the surprise was that I was appointed, and that was a real shock. But it didn't take us long to know that we had a remarkable calling and assignment.
How did the Spirit prepare you for your service on the campus?
When we were at Provo, at the MTC in Provo, the Missionary Training Center, I had an impression that I told Barbara. I said, I don't know why it is, but I have a feeling that someday we'll have something to do with Ricks College. I thought, well, maybe teaching religion or maybe working in the counseling center or something like that. Never dreaming that we'd have the privilege of being up there as president.
So when you learned you were going to serve on campus, from whom did you seek counsel or input, and what did they say? I had known enough about Ricks that I didn't go to a lot of people asking. Brother Hafen was, of course, president of Ricks, and we had known each other for many years. He was a student at the University of Utah when I was the Institute Director at the University of Utah. And we had become friends, and so I could talk with him a little, and from various people we learned a little bit about the nature of the assignment. So as you began to serve on campus and kind of get a feel of the institution, what institutional and individual strengths impressed you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we always had known that Ricks College was a fine institution, but we never had known that it was as fine as it really was. I felt like we were stepping onto a fast-moving train, and it was going in the right direction, and we just hoped we didn't stumble as we stepped onto the train. So initially, the close team of the administration were impressive, and then we became acquainted with faculty, more and more as time went on, and recognized their excellence, that these were people who were dedicated to the gospel, who were committed in their scholarship, their training. I think the ratio of PhDs, for example, on the faculty was unusual for a two-year college. And then, of course, the students. They're remarkable.
As you began to serve with the people and become more and more familiar and move forward in your administration, what needs did you see and what opportunities did you see?
Well, one of the needs I felt was that we need to get the story out. I looked at the statistics of the enrollment at Ricks and during the preceding 2 or 3 years, and they'd been pretty well on a plateau, maybe dipping a little bit. We had a ceiling of 7,500 students, and after I became more acquainted with what a remarkable place Ricks College was, that we needed to get the word out to the parents, the students, priesthood leaders,
so that we could make sure that we were having as many students as the brethren would allow with that 7,500 ceiling. So we worked on that. That was one need. And we traveled around a lot and talked to a lot of people, and we were delighted that enrollment picked up. Fact is, it picked up so well that the very last year that we were there in 1989, when the call came to the 70s, we had reached the ceiling of 7,500.
So could you share with us perhaps some of the ways that heaven helped you and your colleagues along the way?
I felt that in every department there were people who were in tune with the Spirit. I think when they came with proposals, whether it had to do with facilities, physical facilities, or a need for new faculty members if openings were occurring, I felt we had people in every area, whether administratively or in the faculty, and even in the student body, among the officers and so on, who were in tune with the Spirit enough that the Spirit could help them. And getting all that together, I think the Spirit helped generally across the board.
How was your service on campus blessed and benefited you personally and your family?
Well, our family, by the time we had gone there, we were down to only one unmarried child at the time, and he was on his mission, came back and spent one semester with us, living there in the president's home. But all of our family were excited about the opportunity of coming up to Rick's, and I think our family, all of them, were strengthened by the experience. And I had my own testimony of the gospel strengthened, associating with the good people at Rick's.
So the school has rolled forward and moved on. How do you feel the school has performed relative to your expectations?
I think it's remarkable what has happened. I became convinced years ago in becoming better acquainted with Rick's, that Rick's College, out of all the universities and campuses I'd ever visited, and we'd been on a lot of them with the institutes of religion around the country, Rick's College was the best place on earth for a student going away from home to college for the first 2 years. I discovered early on that there are no big classes at that time at Rick's. Every class was taught by one who had not been assigned to depend on research and writing for his progress, but on whether he could teach students as freshmen and sophomores. And they could know the professor. If they had questions, they could go to the professor. And if they were really sharp in whatever, they could go as fast as they chose to go under the guidance of a competent teacher. And then the ecclesiastical opportunities. With all of the stakes, student stakes and wards we had, that in the church there were very few 19-year-old girls who would be Relief Society president, but they didn't have older ones there, and so that's the kind of stretching and growth experience that came. It raised, I think, the standards morally and educationally. And there are other areas, but so standards were higher. So it just adds up that Rick's College was the best place on earth for a freshman and sophomore going away from home to school to attend college. I still believe that. And I'm grateful now that we have President Clark there. He's exactly the person that ought to be there, with his background and contacts and all the things they're doing academically to do all of the important things that I think Rick's was doing before, and many, many more with the additional growth.
So looking at the institution then today, what do you see or hope to see in the school's future?
The facilities are phenomenal. And I think with the growth and all that is occurring, and I believe President Clark illustrates this in his comment, they want to preserve the spirit of Rick's. And that would be a concern if we were to get to a situation where classroom instruction was not as personal as it has been, that would be a loss. If we ever were to think that somehow academics is more important than developing character, integrity, and the spirit, that would be a loss. But I think from all I gather, they're really working well to make sure that those qualities are being preserved and probably even expanded, I think.
Elder Christensen, are there any other recollections or impressions that you'd like to share with us?
Well, first, I'm just thrilled with the direction BYU-Idaho is taking, and every time we have the opportunity of going there, we sense what a remarkable place that it is. I happen to be the only president that was born in Idaho, and I didn't have anything to do with that. And also happened to be there when Ricks College celebrated its centennial in 1988. And we were preparing for that from the moment we arrived, and that's a choice memory. A place that had been there for 100 years during turbulent times and poverty and the Depression, and just remarkable how that has held on all those years, and the next 100 will even be better, I think.
Well, Elder Christensen, thank you for your time with us today and your thoughts. Very grateful.
Been great to come and just visit for a while about a very choice subject as far as I'm concerned.